How you doing, Real Motivation? Terrence McKinney back with a new video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about problem solving. And I'm going to give you 5 steps that you can insert, you can call it a 5-step technique that you can insert anytime you're having a problem, and it's going to help you get out of that problem. Alright, let's get into it. Number 1, the most important step when it comes to problem solving is identifying the issue. You can't solve no problem unless you know where to start. And that's the most important thing it is when it comes to problem solving. What happens when you take your car to Minix or CarX? The first thing the mechanic gonna ask you is, what's wrong? Or you call a repairman in the house or a plumber to the house to fix something. The first question everybody asks you, what's going wrong? What happened? What is it doing? And that's the first question when it comes to solving any problem, is identifying the issue. You got to troubleshoot. You got to know where to start. And you can't solve no problem unless you know what the issue is. So the number 1 thing is identifying the issue. So anytime you're dealing with a problem, know your main objective is to find a place to start and to figure out what's going wrong. Number 2. When you're dealing with a problem, if you in that problem directly, then the first thing you need to do is figure out what role do you play in that problem. It's easier for us to point the finger at somebody else than it is to look in the mirror. And before we point the finger out at anybody else and before we start blaming people, we need to identify what role do we play in it and how did we get there. Because if we're going to be masters of our own fate and we're going to say we control our own destiny, then we got to know any problem that we in, we put ourselves there. Because it wouldn't have started unless somehow, some way, we put ourselves there. That's just like when you see somebody trapped in a maze and they going on for circles and circles and circles and they trapped in a maze for 2 to 3 hours and they can't get out. Guess what? If you trace all their steps backwards to the beginning in that maze, they had to enter that maze. And that's how it is with you and the problem. At some point, you willingly walked yourself into that problem. You may have not known it was going to be a problem, or you might have not known what was going to happen next, but at some point, you put yourself there. So you always got to start with yourself. And you can't go outside and you can't start blaming people if you're not taking accountability and not knowing your own role and your own part in the problem. So always start with yourself before you go outside and start pointing the finger at other people. Identify your role in the problem and be honest with yourself. Be real with yourself, because it's a lot easier for us to blame other people and point the finger at other people than to look in the mirror and hold ourselves accountable. Number 3, you got to look at the whole picture. There's always going to be 3 sides to the story. There's going to be his side, there's going to be her side, and it's going to be the truth. And when you're trying to fix a problem, you got to listen to every angle. And you got to put yourself in both party shoes. You can't just listen to her because she your friend and you hang out with her and you like her and y'all going to get y'all nails done later on. And this is somebody you trying to get closer to. You can't just listen to her. You can't just listen to her and just be like, okay, you're wrong. You shouldn't have did this to my friend. No, you got to listen to both sides of the party, and you gotta put yourself in both sides of the party shoes. And then once you hear the whole story, then you got to put your thinking cap on, because when people tell you stuff, 9 times out of 10, when 2 people having a problem or more than 1 person having a problem, when they telling you their stories are going to be the same, but their story just going to be told from their perception on how it happened. So the truth lies somewhere in between there. You got to listen to both sides of the story and you got to come up with the truth, or you got to figure out the best solution or the best way to fix the problem. But you can't go off listening to party A and just making a split decision. And you can't go off and listen to party B and just making a split decision and saying this person is right and this person is wrong. You got to hear the whole story, and you got to look at it as a place of you being a mediator. And you got to look at it as you being a judge. When a judge is sitting up there and he listening to both lawyers go at it. He's sitting there thinking, and he listening to everything. And when this person get up, he's gonna sound like he's telling the truth. And when this person get up, he gonna be very passionate. It's gonna sound like he's telling the truth. And they both may be telling their truths. Your job is listen to the whole picture and see the whole thing, and not just see one side of the story. Not just see the home team. You got to see the home team. You got to see the winning team, and you got to see the whole game as what it is. Number 4, when you're trying to fix problems, you got to take emotions out of the problem. You got to use logic. You can't go off something being emotionally charged up. And like I just said in my last statement, you can't go off something because this is your friend and you like this person, and so you just gonna ride with this person regardless of what they saying, or you just can't stand this other person, so, and you think the same thing that this other person is saying about this other person. But yeah, you may think that, but that don't necessarily make it right, or that may necessarily deal with that exact problem that's going on. So you got to take emotions out of the problem, and you got to think logically. You got to think like you was a computer. Like if you was like when you play around on your phone, and you may be asking Siri a whole bunch of dumb questions to see what she gonna answer. Some questions that if it ain't like a joke or something built up, they'd be like, she'll tell you, I cannot answer that. Why? Because you asking her a question about something emotionally, and it's a computer. All they can use is logic, and so when you trying to fix the problem, you can't go in it feeling a certain type of way. If you emotionally charged up or you feeling a certain type of way, you need to alleviate yourself from that problem, or you need to not try to fix that problem right then and there, because your opinion is going to be swayed anytime you dealing with emotions. Number 5, this may be one of the most important. This may be the last step, may be the most important step to solve a problem. It's called compromising. Anytime you want to solve a problem, you're going to have to compromise. I mean, you're going to have to give a little to get a little. And I don't care who you are and what problem you're dealing with, no problems get solved without compromising. Because guess what? If you don't compromise, the problem ain't going to never, it ain't going to never get dealt with. All the problem going to do is arise over and over and over and over. And compromising solve any problem. You just think, like two people may argue all day long. They may argue 4 or 5 hours. They debating about something, and this person can't see this person's side, and this person ain't gonna see this other person's side. So what do? They say, okay, we just gonna disagree. We just gonna agree to disagree. But when you agree to disagree, what is you saying? Basically, you compromising. That's compromising in one sentence. What you saying is you believe in something so strong that you ain't changing your ways, and you know this person you argue with believe in something so strong that they ain't changing their ways. So what are you doing? You are agreeing to disagree. You agreeing that this is what I believe in, and I'm agreeing that's what you believe in, and you ain't changing. But guess what? When we agree to disagree, we settling an argument. You believe what you believe, I believe what I believe, but guess what? We're going to end this argument so we can move on with it our day, and we ain't got to have this conversation. That's compromising. And you never get any problem solved without compromise, because like I said, you may think that problem solved, but if that other person ain't get what they wanted when it was come to saying that problem, then you're going to be dealing with that same problem 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 4 months from now. You're going to continue to deal with that problem until both parties felt like they gained something, or both parties got to walk away from something and feel like they won. Just look at the White House in an election, and anytime they voting for something on Congress, and there's Democrats and there's Republicans, and how many times, just thinking the COVID-19 bill that just got passed, the stimulus package, how many times they had to rewrite it because we don't like this in there, so here, this is what we want, then they send it back, then they send it back, then they send it back, they send it back. One bill get amended like 8 to 10 times just because both parties have to feel like they didn't give up too much, or that other party didn't get enough. So you got to compromise. You got to come to some solution to where you make both parties happy. So let's recap our top 5 reasons or top 5 ways to solve any problem. Number 1, identify the issue. Get to the root problem. Know where to start. Know what angle to attack at. Number two, always start with yourself. Before you go pointing fingers at other people or before you start placing blame, look in the mirror, give yourself a self-analysis and figure out what role did you play in that problem. Number three, look at the whole picture. There's always three sides to the story. His side, her side, and the truth. Number four, take emotions out of the problem solving. You got to use logic, and you can't go into nothing when you're emotionally charged up. And number five, you got to compromise. Well, no problems ever get solved if you ain't willing to compromise. Have a great day, Real Motivation.